No. I don't think you. I would start.
All right, welcome everyone. Let's start out with, are there any questions about the practice quiz? All right. I do have office hours tomorrow from 1 to 2, so if you want to check out the practice quiz between now and then, you can ask questions about it before you take the actual quiz this weekend. Any questions about the homework? Allison.
Can you do problem 10?
Problem 10. Good. So we want to find the probability that at least one bulb in a string of 100 lights will burn out within 2 years. So let's let X be the number that burn out. So we're looking for the probability that X is at least 1. So probability of X is greater than or equal to 1. What distribution does X have? So each bulb either burns out or stays lit. So there are 2 possible options. We have a fixed number of bulbs, 100, and the probability that a bulb will last at least 2 years is 0.995, so it's the same for all the bulbs, independent of all the other bulbs. So when you put those things together, yeah, it's binomial. So we want to find the probability that X is greater than or equal to 1 using a binomial distribution. So what calculator function might we want to use? Yeah, we could use binomial CDF, but binomial CDF will only give us the probability that X is less than or equal to something. So we can use the complement rule. So we can say this is 1 minus some probability. And if we draw it a number line, the number of bulbs that burn out could be 0, 1, 2, dot, 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 up to 100. The probability we're interested in is the probability that X is greater than or equal to 1. That's our event E. So what's the complement of E? So in other words, what probability am I putting here after this 1 minus? Yeah?
Are you saying like you want like the bulk weighting for binding CDF or?
So just thinking about it in terms of probability of something. What is the something that should go in here?
X is less than or equal to 0.
Yeah, the probability that X is less than or equal to 0, or we could just say the probability that X equals 0, either way. Because the only thing we didn't circle here in our event E is X being equal to 0. All right. So if you think of this as less than or equal to 0, then you would be using binomial CDF. If you think of it as X being equal to 0, then you'd be using binomial PDF. But either way, it'll get you the same answer because the number of lights that burn out can't be negative. So if it's less than or equal to 0, then it has to be equal to 0. All right.
I tried that and I actually, it just kept coming up as 0.
So we're not done yet.
I'm not done with
Now we need to pay attention to what X represents. X is the number of bulbs that burn out. And if you look at the problem, we were told the probability that it lasts at least 2 years is 0.995. So that's the probability that it doesn't burn out. So what's the probability that it does burn out? Yeah, 0.005. So we're using the complement rule a second time in order to take 1 minus 0.995 and find the probability that it does burn out. So that means that when we do binomial PDF or CDF here, let's see, our total number of trials or bulbs was 100. So 100, comma, the probability we want to put in here isn't 0.995. Because we want to put in the probability of 1 yes result. So in other words, 1 bulb burning out. So we need to put in 0.005, comma 0. Questions about this? Other questions about the homework? No.
This is not one homework, but our exam is a completely graded.
The exam is now completely graded. Yep. Other questions about homework or practice exam?
Sure. I have one about the project proposal.
Oh, sure.
So did you want us all to like fill out the same document and then each submit it individually, or have just one person in your group?
Just one person needs to submit it. But I did set up, I just set up 4 empty groups. And I figured you could add yourselves to the group so that way, if one of you wanted to move to work with a different table, you could. So I think, give this a try. I think you need to go to people and then project. I think then you can add yourself to a group. Give that a try and let me know on Monday if that doesn't work. So once you do that, then it should be set up so that you'll be able to see when someone else in your group has made a submission. So that,
And then easy to get up.
yep.
So once you're submits it to the.
So you're submitting it to that, or you just go to assignments and submit it?
So
there?
I think you need to go to the people to put yourself in a group first. And then you would go to, assignments or
They just let you know which group, right?
what's that?
So I submitted in regular assignments and it just tell you that which one it was.
Right.
Okay, so let's make sure you don't have to submit it somewhere else under that assignment.
No, you just submit it in the usual way, but if you add yourself to a group, then I'll be able to see one report or one proposal and it'll be associated with all of the people in your group.
Yeah. And then it's a-
Any other questions about the project proposal?
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Sure.
Also, I'm wondering if the proportions how the this is proportional or the whole is to get proportions like or use the test to get a big sample size and the average for a small one.
Those are the only two ways that we're gonna.
Oh, well, I said there's no.
Would it be possible to work something out using a binomial distribution? But it'd be harder because you have two different binomial distributions.
Oh, it was.
I was like the X squared and X.
So one.
So
Because I thought I already had to get,
Is the
and then I was
always
like,
gonna be the
So I know if it feels harder than it is. People taking the test.
Doesn't really matter, as long as your alternative hypothesis.
Oh, thanks,
And I'll show you
Any other one, look at that.
but there's the meeting.
All right, so let's move on to our new topic, which is ways of graphing and working with two quantitative variables. Or in other words, a quantitative variable that is divided up across two groups of an explanatory. So this activity will let you investigate a relationship between how much people's haircuts cost and what their gender identity is. This is right. So for anybody watching the recording, this is the haircut prices activity. That's right here.
So. For full format. Would be about like 48. Yeah. Since you approved it. It's cheap. So would it be for? It'd be less. So I would say like 45. And then 25. It's a little skewed, but not terrible. But it looks like it's not like as little as this. So it's like right spread out, slightly right skewed. Yeah, slightly right skewed.
We have 4.
Yes.
What should we talk about?
You were saying it's slightly right skewed. There you go. It makes sense because you have more hair. Or it depends on the right. It's not style quality. Yeah, because I think it goes. Probably.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Like, probably asking like, how can you tell by the graph?
Because the or the third.
I'm gonna say it's like stretched out on the top.
Third, fourth.
Yeah.
Knowing that time of appointment.
Well, technically, you're not.
You need to do the.
I think it's an outline, we don't know if it's like,
There is a
should
shelf.
be added or not.
No, you need to do the fence thing, because even that is international.
I would say outlier possibility.
Okay. There's some guy from my apartment, like, he's my electricity thing, he forgot his hand drill. Yeah. Got it. I saw them, but I want to keep it.
So,
The rain would be high.
I was going back for it.
So it's like
I should tell him to do this. It's gonna be higher.
What, you mean?
Yeah.
Oh, wait, no, 30.
Alright, so there's more stuff there.
Well, yeah, this.
Thirty.
Yeah.
65, 65-ish.
Of the meeting.
The middle, so the middle two boxes. I said 30 and then 60.
I would say, yeah, 30.
Middle.
37.
Yeah. So then it's 70.
And make sure you count that later too,
125.
when you're doing the upper part.
Do we have to?
Yeah, everyone's gonna be, count all the way to the top.
Wait, what did you say?
So down.
Yeah, we did write it down.
So 70.
We'll find it.
Or would it be 70? I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's just something, we don't need any more.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So 0.5.
So to.
You're not.
It's like I still like it up. I'm writing the sentence down already.
You're not.
Wait, why? Wait, why is there only 20 out?
Because we did
Okay, this spread is.
Wait, so this one should be, so this number is more. So this should be 125. Sorry, no, you.
So the top, we're not.
Which one are you
Not that one.
Oh, this one.
This one, the bottom. Top 50% is 45 and 155.
45. Oh, yeah, yeah.
Probably erase it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the range for
It's better like other people. I don't go get it. I wait till they send me one,
Yeah.
I don't have to get it till they send me.
Is that like? There's more outliers. This is not really.
We don't know what's around.
Yeah, they are. They are outliers,
included them
but
in number
we
5.
don't know who you should include.
I'm gonna say that I have more outliers.
Where is the bottom like? From the bottom?
Yeah.
Is this not even?
Yeah,
Sure,
based
it's
on
like
that,
right there.
that's the base price of green clips.
Well, it's
Cheapest one.
It's so small, I can't even see it.
I think 20, yes.
I'm going, get a printer, because you need to leave. Like if it's bad, it doesn't matter, because I get a haircut.
Say yes.
Don't do a word.
Okay.
Or outlier.
No, we just find a median.
Oh,
Find the
or
or
do the median.
Do you think these
I got 20.
data show?
Medians, wait, you didn't, you're right, the association.
Yeah, we said
Yes,
yes.
more than 50.
Yeah. Or the association would be,
Yeah. that's,
Compared to men. The association, that women pay more because
I don't know.
Association is just gender.
women are likely to take more things.
well, I mean, this is get worded.
What is
Yeah,
association?
right?
Then
So they have to break down like there's an association for women in gender
What
and
is
what
association?
because the association is women.
In gender.
I'm just saying women things.
There's a.
So there is.
People are dead.
Wow.
I don't know. Okay.
Fine, yeah.
Like, so there's asking, but I'm still like.
We estimated it. You just pause a little bit, right? Two.
I as well.
You just gotta say also.
Yeah.
Is that-
All right,
I also, I can't really find the same.
Oh, yeah.
Did we?
Really? What? Did you not do three?
Yes, we use me.
You just forgot.
Oh, I just copied it down. I didn't know we just, I just wrote whatever rate.
Well, probably like, no, women's get the old stuff.
Like, or like the comparison.
No, you don't have a lot
Oh, no, the median?
That's what I was going into.
Why is it weird that it's
Yeah.
It's the median of the.
Well, it's the
But yeah.
And you just do the median.
Oh, yeah, like all.
Okay, so you know how you did the median by hand and count it, and it's like this is for the. So you do the same thing. Oh.
It was.
You do the rainbow thing. So we, so it's worth it. That's all we need. Okay, check your party. So we have to put everything.
Oh, if you keep scrolling.
I'm using what's not one. So we are. Are these even like random number?
So this is the one we have to do on.
Yeah. Okay, now we have to find one of our stats. You know, for that.
Oh, it should be out there.
What? Is it intense?
I don't know.
Okay, so then, so for how to do it by hand, so median, what do we do?
Oh, yeah, obviously, you have to send your deviation.
This might be wrong.
No, B is supposed to.
Yeah, I was really why I said 22. I was just gonna.
Yeah, that's exactly what you do.
Oh, like you have to.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
That's like the box.
Yeah,
Well,
so,
because it's up, there's 13 things.
Like
I
obviously,
thought I
they're
would
like,
this one.
like 14.
So
So
then
then the lower half of it don't have to be that 20.
Oh, never mind.
Yeah.
Oh, they gotta
So
raise
it's
it.
been sort of seven.
Well, I got like-
Okay, gosh, I was.
So you don't.
Because it's between 0 and 14. So, because, okay, so she just said you don't have this, which is the median. So you start here and here and here. And then bring
Oh, I
here.
But that's.
So how do you find the median when we have an even number?
Yeah, I just didn't realize you don't count.
Oh, I see, okay.
So for our textbook or calculators, we don't count them.
Okay, so
There are other textbooks where they use the median with them.
So if you were to give us a data, let's say we had even number in there, and you want us to find the. First quartile. Would we count, because the median, counting, there's kind of two. Around this median. So let's just say ours like
Right.
another value.
So then the median would be.
So I take the first row.
Yeah.
Okay. So only when it's odd number, we just don't count that.
Right, you don't include the actual
You would.
data value that is. You do include the next one over. Even if.
And that's why the next one is like even number.
Wait, so what? We just use all those numbers.
Yeah.
Wait, how do you like clear it and then?
I just go to the back and press reset. And calculator. For sure.
I'm just gonna clear the whole thing.
Just restart real calculator.
You just delete another answer. Oh, you don't have to repeat the entire call, I've done that so many times. Press clear. Press clear. Press clear, you'll clear the computer hell on the computer.
So, oh, sure.
Standard
Did you
deviation is
didn't change it?
I'll let you guys do it.
What's the standard deviation? I forgot what it was.
Oh, let me do it. I'll do
You
it.
do
The
it.
regular.
One of our staff,
But there's a data point there.
$20.
Nobody can see.
You guys use the-
Are you doing like this?
I'm gonna do it with simple plan.
Just use it for what?
Oh, wait, which one do you use?
Or, it's $8. I think that's what. I think
Yeah,
that's
that's
true.
what I'm done.
Yeah.
I got.
I got 15, I got 6.
It could be an outlier without being.
Wait.
What'd you get?
21,
It could be this. That
Or
person
two,
really
two,
likes
six,
it, $75.
267. 267. Yeah, because
Wait,
I'm
I
at 6.
Sigma.
But I mean, it wasn't like.
Yeah, I don't know, but you're right.
In that case, you might not keep
I
that.
think Sigma is the.
It's not a mistake.
Oh, no,
It's
we
just
should
showing you that.
because we're talking about Sigma.
Okay, what'd you get?
Symbol is 22.135.
So am I right?
Like a known
Yeah, that's what.
So
the
6.0.
How much did you spend on your event?
Okay, that makes sense.
With,
So it's just an outlier.
22.1.
Maybe you have to do the RCR.
how much money is it with?
No, it's 30 not an outlier.
But it says.
Or is it?
What's the one with
Oh,
1601.
RQR.
That's without.
Oh, yes, that's.
oh, the actual R.
But I don't think that.
Oh,
Send those to me. Like, I know my brother, he's in a car shop. I think you should do it out.
And I didn't realize that the girl was like.
Oh,
Yeah,
Yeah, that's the song
See if
that.
that way.
So.
It's IQR without there.
Like you would use that.
You're getting a
Oh, no.
little.
I love it, yeah, at this point.
I know. Oh,
Yeah,
you
you
don't
don't
think
think
it is.
Yeah, I like it.
Hey, what about you?
I have 22.5.
Same,
So what's.
to be exact, you said same to me. Check that answer.
Yeah.
What's
22.5 minus 7. Well, 22 minus 7 is 8.5.
9.5. 15.
15. I don't know why I said 8. I was thinking 15.
Is what? 18?
No.
Oh, 15.
No.
So this one,
Minus
what?
15.5 minus something.
Okay, so this, wait, 22.5 minus 7 is 18.
No. It's 8.5 add a 7. I just said, I forgot to add another 7 to it. I said 8.5. It's like 8.5 plus another 7.
I wrote down that.
Right. So what is it now? What are you guys doing?
We're finding the difference in the IQR with IQR.
Yeah, so what is it with?
So the width is 14 with that is, no, width,
Are you saying width?
width, no, with the outlier is 15.5, without is 14.
And then you subtract it, which is 1.5, and then if you do that for the same deviation, it's 6.125, so therefore it is.
So which one's with, which one's without?
I don't know.
Width is
Okay.
15.5 without is 14.
I can just type.
14 point what?
Kind of started, but I like to.
Now it's really fast.
You
You can't believe why we did that?
Yeah, just figure it out.
But what's the difference? Just go over the
Oh, 6.1.
We already knew the answer.
Yeah, well, she said. Okay. Cool. Look at this out. I'm ready.
I didn't practice because I'll do it together too.
I already.
Wow.
I knew
And then I'll like, it's like a dance.
Wait a minute. I don't know biology until we, I haven't talked for any other class.
So the IQR.
Oh, I can't put it away yet. I can't do it away. You always put it
My
away.
sister's not gonna be
Yeah,
thing is,
Do you want access to
So,
your computer so that you?
Boxplots.
Or
Reach for it.
Oh, exactly. I think it's like.
Oh, wait, Jonathan.
I'm pretty sure it's like, what is that? 4 years full of new card is not how the.
That is a capital C practice.
Oh, I'll tell you. I'll yell at you. No. Wrong. I should probably.
Yeah,
because I finished all my work. And so do that. So what like what are they is
I don't know if
I only have a little bit of bread, which is
Only a little.
I did this in Wednesday when we didn't have it for half the stuff yet.
What they say?
Oh.
Should we ask for?
It's
I just wanna make sure people
like,
remember.
I don't think it's that big, and I don't think it's adjusted like that. It's both, but I think that it's easier because a lot of it is people are going outside state.
Yeah.
But also, sometimes.
See, I know, right?
I was thinking more like Canvas.
I know, Canvas
So
was
much
one.
easier than.
It's
We definitely need this.
Canvas, it gets the out space, like
Yeah, with the design, I mean, someone. I don't know, did we want everything?
All right, let's talk about this. So what is the explanatory variable in this problem? Gender. Yeah, so in this problem, gender is being treated as categorical, that it's dividing the data into two groups. So in this case, we just have two categories of men and women. So that's where we're getting our two groups that we're going to compare. What's the response variable? The cost. And what kind of variable is that? That's quantitative. All right. So for estimating the median price of haircuts, which part of the box plots are we looking at? Nettie? Yeah, this middle black line. So women looks like the median price is 45, 48, somewhere around there. And for men, it looks like it's somewhere around 20, which is going to agree with later on in the activity. How would you describe the shape of this box plot for women's haircuts? Sarah?
We said it was slightly right.
Yeah, we have a slightly longer upper tail or distance to this outlier than we do for the lower tail. Any thoughts about why it would make sense for haircut prices to be right skewed? Mary? Yeah, so we have a fixed lower boundary at 0. There's no particular upper bound. So when that happens, it's pretty common to have a case where sort of most people pay some low amount close to 0, but there are a few people who are willing to pay very high prices for their haircuts. All right, so let's estimate, what would you say for the middle 50% of women's haircuts, looking at this graph? Maya, what'd you say?
45 to 70.
45 to 70, so 45, that looks like the top, that looks like
She answered the-
30.
30, okay. That sounds more reasonable. Like that?
Yes, that's what I meant.
All right. Yeah, so the middle 50% is looking at the box. So yeah, that looks reasonable, 30 to 70. Anybody say anything different here? All right, how about the top 50% of women's haircuts? Then 45 to 150. So whatever you said is your estimate of the median there. And the estimate of where that top outlier is. So that's an important point, is that the top 25% of the data includes both this upper tail and any outliers that we have on the high end. All right. How would you compare the spread of the distributions of men's and women's haircut prices? Mary, what'd you say?
The women have a much larger spread, which is from 0 to 150, and men have a much smaller spread from 0 to 75.
Yeah, so looking at the range of prices from the bottom to the top is one way of looking at it. What's another way of measuring the amount of spread or variability? What way of measuring the spread do we especially talk about when looking at box plots? The interquartile range, yeah. So that's the distance from the bottom of the box to the top of the box. And that's also much greater for women than for men. So. Or spread. And we can see this in the range, the interquartile range, or if we had the data values, then we could compute the standard deviation. So do you think these data show an association between people's gender and how much they pay for haircuts? Let's do thumbs up for yes, thumbs down for no. I would tend to agree. Here we have, it looks like typically women tend to pay more than men. And next week, we'll look at using simulations and theory-based tests in order to test whether there's statistically significant evidence of a difference. All right. What is the median price for men's haircuts in this data set? Someone from table 4, what'd you get? For the first quartile? Nice, yeah. So for 8B, so for part A, finding the median price, if you do the trick that you might have learned in like your high school statistics class of like, I'm gonna count off one from the bottom and one from the top, and then the second one from the bottom and the second one from the top, and sort of work your way into the middle. We end up with this 20 as the middle value. So that's our median. And then to find the first quartile, we're taking the lower half of the data. So everything that's below the median, so not counting the median, and we're doing that same process. And here we have an even number of data points. So the median is going to be the average or the mean of the middle two. So the average of 0 and 14 gives us 7. All right. And then if we found out that this outlier at $75 was actually an error in data entry, so we were going to delete it from the data set, which do you think would change more, the interquartile range or the standard deviation? Raise your hands if the interquartile range is going to change more. Raise your hand if the standard deviation is going to change more. Very good. The standard deviation and the mean sort of go together in being both influenced by outliers. The interquartile range sort of goes along with the median in that the interquartile range only cares about the positions of the data. So the fact that there was a number at 75 there, it doesn't care that the number was 75. It could have been 61, so just anything bigger than the next largest, or it could have been 1,000,000. The interquartile range only cares about, oh, there's a data point there that's the biggest. It doesn't care about the actual value. So the interquartile range, like the median, ends up being robust to outliers. Any questions about this activity? All right, we have 6 minutes left. So if you would like to stick around and talk with your group about your project proposal, I can stick around and answer questions with individual groups as needed. Otherwise, have a good weekend.
You want me to just remind me after class? You want me to? Oh, yeah. I keep up. Oh, sorry.
So did I.
Nice weekend.
This way we can like, okay. Is that a response variable or explain? That's a response. Our inventory is like height. Oh, so like height is like general.